everyone. Very good morning and welcome to the Object Oriented ABAP Masterclass. In this masterclass, we are going to understand the importance of learning the Object Oriented ABAP and what are the different places where these are getting used and why it's important to learn, why it is important to upgrade yourself, and you are supposed to learn this particular technology. You are supposed to go ahead as soon as possible and learn this one in order to upskill yourself and to succeed in your career, succeed in your life in a better way. So this is mainly we are going to cover in this masterclass. Lot of learning, lot of motivation, and lot of actions you are going to take after this or during this masterclass. So let's go. Here, if you come, we know that there are 5 pillars of object-oriented ABAP. What are those pillars, right? When we talk about the pillars, that means the attributes, that means the properties, that means the specification, that means, the basis. What are those base? What are those properties? What are those specification of object-oriented programming, which makes object-oriented programming object-oriented programming, right? Encapsulation. What's the meaning of encapsulation? Encapsulation means whenever we talk about encapsulation, word capsule comes into picture. And do you know about the capsule? Capsule consists of different ingredients inside this. Similarly, encapsulation means inside the class, you are going to have the attributes and methods, right? So this is known as encapsulation. So whenever any object-oriented programming comes into effect, encapsulation is one of the mandatory property. Without encapsulation, you won't be able to imagine about the object-oriented programming concept. So class, right, consists of attributes, methods, another interfaces. One class can consist of another class as well. So not going to more deep inside, just going to give the overview, but hope you are able to understand what I am trying to tell you. Encapsulation means class. Encapsulation means interfaces. Okay. This is what's the meaning of encapsulation. Data hiding. What is this data hiding? Whenever we talk about the data hiding, when you are going to hide something, tell me why the hiding is required. When you hide something from someone, let's suppose you have some jewelry, why you hide that? For the purpose of, just type in the comment box why we hide. Very good. For the security purpose, for the sensitive data, right? So if something is very, very important and very, very crucial, we must have to hide them, right? And that's where the hiding comes into picture, and data hiding is one of the very important part of object-oriented programming for the purpose of security, for the purpose of critical data to save, to not expose to the outer world unnecessary. So for that purpose, we have the different kinds of visibility. Okay, public, protected, and private. These are the different types of visibility we are having. So you know that public data can be accessed from any another class. Protected data can be accessed only with the child class, and the private data will be accessed only by that class itself. So that's the meaning of actually data hiding, and different kinds of visibility are set when the data hiding approach we are going to use. We have three keywords: public, protected, and private. I'm going to show one example at least, okay? Because you are here, and if you don't have the basic idea of object-oriented programming, this basic concept we'll try to understand with the help of one example at the end, okay? Now, abstraction. What is this abstraction? So, see, something about which if you don't have the concrete idea, for example, you are going to design a building, you are going to create a building on some plot, right? You don't have the idea about how it's going to be actually look like, but you have the abstract idea, you have a template, right? So abstraction is a kind of template where the abstract class and interface comes into that category. So in the abstract class, you can have the abstract method. In that method, you can only have the definition, and implementation you can have in the child class. Okay, so maybe this concept you won't be able to resonate or understand more, but this is what the abstraction. Abstraction means just the basic idea. That's the definition part, actual implementation will be there in the what child class, okay, or uh, in another inheriting class. Now the inheritance, very, very important property, this inheritance. So if you think about all this property, this is somewhere related with the real world, object-oriented programming, right? That's the name, object-oriented programming. The programming which is oriented towards the real-time object, okay, real-time worlds. So you can more resonate with the real-time object. Inheritance, you know that we inherit the property from our father. Our father have inherited the properties from their father, right? Inheritance, what happens? I have inherited the property from my father, and I can have some extra property as well. It can be genetic property or it can be physical property, right? So inheritance concept is also here applicable in object oriented programming, right? Did you understand the inheritance? It's easy, whatever we have discussed till now. From all those, this inheritance is very, very easy. If you understood about the inheritance, just type capital I in the comment box, and then I will move forward towards the polymorphism. Superb, superb. What is polymorphism? Poly means multiple. Poly means ढेर सारा, बहुत, many, अनेक. Poly means many. Morphism means what? रूप, forms, prakar. One thing can be used in a different ways. That's the meaning of polymorphism, right? I am son of my father. I'm the same person, right? I am brother of my elder brother. I'm brother of my, younger brother. I'm uncle of my brother's son, right? I'm the same person, but I am different in different situation. In the same way, what you can do that you can have the same method name, and in the different situation, that means in the different classes, you can implement differently. You can write the implementation part differently, right? Polymorphism are of two types. Who will write? Just type here in the comment box. What are the different types of polymorphism you know about? All right. What are the different types of polymorphism you know about in object-oriented programming? I believe many of you or most of you would will be there in the from the programming background, right? Very good. Overloading and overriding. Superb. There are two types of polymorphism: overloading and overriding. What happens in overloading? In overloading, your method name is going to be same, but your definition, you know, and implementation definition also, that means the importing parameter and exporting parameter, changing parameter, you know, the definition part, method definition also you can change, name will be same. Okay, for example, get data is a method name, right? Let's assume that the get data is a method name. So here, let's suppose we have a method called get data. So in the get data, you can have the importing parameter, exporting parameter, right? So when you talk about the overloading, in overloading, your definition, that means the exporting, importing parameter, that also you can change in the another class wherever this method is going to get inherited. Okay. Plus implementation, that means the logic inside that. So that's the meaning of overloading. But in overriding, your definition is going to remain same. That means you will not be able to change the importing, exporting, changing, returning these parameters. Only the implementation you will be able to, you know, do differently. So in ABAP, overloading is not supported. Okay, means the definition you will not be able to change, implementation you can change. So in ABAP, you just remember this is one of the very important interview question. Okay, in object oriented ABAP, whether overloading is supported or not, what will be your answer? Just type here in the comment box. The answer should be what? Yes or no? Overloading is not supported, right? Overloading is not supported. What's supported? Overriding supported. Overriding. Just type overriding in the comment section. Overriding. Everybody, overriding. So now let's go and clear this. You understood the meaning of polymorphism. So we are just talking about the theoretical part. Practically is not possible in this session. Now, let's go and check out the next slides. What is this, guys? Do you know this particular creature? What is this? What is this? A dinosaur, right? Is it right now there in this world? So big, right? It's so big, so huge, right? But it's not here. Why it's not here? Because, tell me, just right here in the comment box, why it's not present at this moment in this world? Because the environment was not able to suit him, or he was not able to cope with the environment, right? Why I'm talking about this dinosaur? Whatever, see the ABAP earlier, like when you talk about the early ABAP, mostly we were doing the programming in traditional ABAP, you know, like procedural programming, you know, the classical way of doing the programming. Okay, but then the power of object oriented way of doing the programming came into picture, and everybody like uh, Java, C++, different types of programming language evolved, and then ABAP also has to be, right? Because object oriented programming is a powerful way of doing the programming, and there are so many advantages. Just we have seen some of the attributes, and you would have realized the power of object oriented programming. Yes or no? Type here in the comment box, right? So powerful, so powerful, so powerful. So you have to now evolve, start doing the programming in object oriented ABAP. And it's a simple, you have to learn. You have to learn the basics. See, nowadays, if you have observed the SAP examples also, it has been written in what? In object oriented ABAP only, right? Agree? Anywhere in help.sap.com, or if you check about, like if you press F1 over there on any, you know, keyword, then most of the time you will come across the object oriented ABAP programming way of doing the coding, right? However, something from the classical programming is very, very important, that also we don't have to lose them. For example, RFC function module, for example, update function module, right? At this moment, there is no, there is nothing in this object oriented programming which can replace this particular, RFC concept or this update function module concept. But apart from that, from class method, you can call the function module. That is possible, right? So at least you can follow the approach of doing the programming in the object oriented way. This is what actually I'm trying to tell. So you have to cope up, you have to, you know, upgrade. Everyone, in fact, I also have to upgrade, you also have to upgrade, everyone have to upgrade, adaptation, right? We have to adapt with the environment, with the current technology, with the newest technology. We don't have to stick with the traditional way of doing the gradually. We have to cope up, we have to adapt, we have to learn, we have to implement, right? So just type capital A if you all are willing to adapt with the object oriented ABAP way of doing the programming. Just type capital A for adaptation, right? Let's go to the next slides. Here you can see that. And one thing over here, one very polite request. See, when I asked you to write the capital A, only Ramjan, Chidambaram, Krishna, Apurva, and Rajat, right? Only 5 people were able to write this capital A. So remaining here we have the 30 peoples, right? Out of 30, only 5 people you were able to write. What does it mean? If you don't want to adapt, then there is no meaning of attending this session, right? In beginning itself, I told you that you have to be interactive if you are here. Otherwise, you are simply, I should not tell, but you are wasting your time. Maybe you can do some better work. Like if you are not here 100%, there is no meaning, right? So please be here, be interactive. It motivates me also. Like, see, if I ask you to type something, and out of 30 people, if I get here response only for the from the 5 people, what I think that I'm not able to engage my audience, right? I'm not a good speaker. That kind of sense I will sense. And for me, giving the presentation, it will not be so easy if I'm not motivated, right or wrong? Tell me, right? If I'm not motivated, if you are not going to encourage me, how will I present in effective, in more entertaining, in more informative way, right? I have put lot of effort in order to prepare this session, right? So I request you, a very polite request, please be interactive and type in the comment box whenever I ask, so that I can realize the power of my audience and it will be motivating for me, right? Clear? If it's clear, just type capital C fast. If it's clear, just type capital C and then I will quickly go ahead. Thank you everyone for hearing me, accepting me. Thank you so much. Here, many a times in my many of the previous master classes also, I have shared this particular figure, right? SAP is the biggest ERP. You are at the right place. You are at the best place in terms of ERP. You might be able to see that this Microsoft, this is mostly due to the MS Office. MS Office also comes as a part of, as a tool of ERP. And because at many places MS Office gets used, this is the biggest figure. But the real ERP, the business ERP, when you talk about the business ERP, you can see that 11.8% SAP at first place. Isn't it amazing, right? Isn't it amazing? Just type capital A if you think that SAP is really amazing software. It's Apple in the mobile field, right? It's the same as the reputation of Apple is there in the mobile industry, right? In the hardware or laptop or uh, and the desktop, like the same reputation SAP is having in its ERP domain. So we are really blessed. We are really so you know uh, thankful to the opportunity what we have received or what we have, because we are here in the SAP domain. It is the biggest ERP at this moment, or has been since I think many decades, right? SAP, and it's going to be there the way it's evolving, right? So hope you are able to understand that we are in the right domain, and if we want to sustain in this domain, we must have to upgrade. We must have to at least try to upgrade ourselves, right, with the latest and greatest technology. Only ABAP will not help you. You have to learn object oriented. You have to learn ABAP on HANA. You have to learn OData, you have to learn RESTful ABAP, because we are from the ABAP domain. These are the mandatory things. And if you're going to have the good command on this, no one is going to discard from the market. These are having the huge opportunity, and everywhere requires good ABAP programmer, good ABAP, OOPS ABAP programmer, ABAP on HANA program. Only in ABAP, be master in one thing in ABAP related technology, and there will be no problem. See, object oriented ABAP. Here, quite important, OOPS ABAP, because what is this here in OData, right? If you want to learn OData well, you should know the object oriented ABAP, right? You should know object oriented ABAP if you want to understand OData well. Again, you know about the dynamic column generation or dynamic programming. Like if you want to play with the dynamic programming in ABAP, like dynamic internal table, dynamic structure, dynamic ALB population, RTTS is the concept, runtime type services. RTTS stands for runtime type services. This is what RTTS stands for, runtime type services. It is having many classes, many methods. So you should know how to use them. And for that purpose also, you have to understand the object oriented programming in ABAP. This is also known as ABAP objects. OOPS ABAP, also known as ABAP objects. Would you like to become a greater programmer, right? Would you like to become a greater programmer? Yes or no? Yes, right? You are going to become a better programmer. You would love to become a greater programmer. Who this person is? Anyone? No? Do you know this person name? This is a great programmer. This is a great programmer of the world. This is, the C++ programming language founder, or developer, you can say, Bjorn Stop. So this gentleman have been a great programmer. You have to become like a great programmer. We don't have to be there a kind of average programmer, or and the simple programmer. We have to do something extraordinary, right? And that's why we are here. That's why you are learning, correct? So we have to think something bigger, something better. Our goal, our ideal should be something bigger. We don't have to become simply a programmer, you know, write some piece of code, not like that. Make a target to become a greater whatever domain in you are in, and then see the magic, right? Then object oriented ABAP programming here, like for a AMDP, code push down, right? Without code push down, you will not be able to achieve the power of HANA database, right? So AMDP is one of the very, very important topic which you are supposed to learn as an ABAPer also, right? And for that purpose, you should have the good understanding, at least basic understanding, right? At least the basic understanding of object-oriented programming. Then what is this RESTful application programming with ABAP? RESTful application programming with ABAP, right? So one of the important use case of object-oriented ABAP is RESTful application programming. That means RAP, right? That means RAP. That means one of the way of doing the programming on cloud. So if you want to write the ABAP code on cloud, what you have to follow the approach? You have to follow the approach of a RESTful application programming model. And how you will be able to do? With the help of what? ABAP objects, OOPS ABAP. With the help of OOPS ABAP only it's possible. So here also, like, you should be good in the object oriented ABAP. Then if you want to implement the virtual elements in CDS, right, where you write the code which is going to be executed for populating the virtual elements, again the object oriented ABAP, right? So there are many use cases, some of the use cases, some of the importance I have listed down over here, and hope you are able to understand how important to learn the object oriented ABAP, right? So hope you are able to understand the importance, and now let's go to the next slides. See, world are moving towards S4 HANA, right? So here you can see that in Q2 2022, 20,000 customers for SAP ERP. These customers are not simple customer. These are the big customer. In Q2 itself, they got the 20,000, right? So this is how in this speed it's getting, right, the number of customers with the SAP. Why the number of customers are important in this session? The more customer, more business for SAP, more demand for ABAP consultant, right? ABAP developer. So from the demand perspective also, you can realize this power. So we are going to, like, you would have observed, for an ABAPer, always the demand will be there, right? Whenever you update your profile on Naukri or LinkedIn, you will start getting a lot of calls and those. But when it's possible to have the good hike and good salary growth and all these things, this is possible only when you have the what? Good skill set. So here you can see that, like, if you want to grow and if you want to achieve something significant, you have to learn, then only you will be able to achieve something significant, right? Do you agree with me? Just type capital A if you agree with me, right? Just type capital A if you agree with me. Fine, very good. And now going ahead, see, if you want to become successful in any of the domain, you have to invest your time, you have to be dedicated, and you have to spend on yourself, on your education, on your training, right? So time, dedication, and training. All these three things together is leading towards success. Hope it's clear for you, right? Now, we understood the importance of object oriented ABAP, why it's so important. We also understood some basics of OOPS ABAP. These are the 5 pillars. But do you think that learning encapsulation, data hiding, abstraction, inheritance, polymorphism, just learning the definition will help you to become a OOPS ABAP programmer? Just learning the definition, this theoretical part, will help you to become a object oriented ABAP programmer? Yes or no? No, right? Just by learning these things theoretically, it will not help you. You will have to go deeper inside, right? You should know what is interface. You should know what is abstract class. You should know how to achieve multiple inheritance with the help of interface, right? Inheritance is also of two types. One is multi-level and another is multiple. So multi-level is by default there, but multiple directly ABAP does not support. Okay, so you can achieve though with the help of interface. Okay, so how to achieve that one, right? You have several design patterns: singleton design pattern, facade design pattern, abstract design pattern, factory design pattern, MVC design pattern, right? Decorator design pattern. There are so many different types of design patterns are there. At least some of the design pattern like singleton, facade, factory, you should know some 4 5 design pattern, MVC design pattern. You should know at least, so that you will be able to do the programming in object oriented ABAP, right? So you all agree that this much knowledge is not going to help you. You have to go deeper inside, and what you have to do, you have to learn. So for that purpose, if I show you my course, which I have prepared for the object oriented ABAP, which is a recorded course from my last class, would you interested to know about that course? Just type capital I if you are interested to know about that particular course which I have prepared. Fine. So thank you for your confirmation, and I will take you through that particular course where I have discussed all these concepts in detail, in very much detail, in fact. Okay, and you will be learning in depth. So let me take you through the content of that particular course. Fine. So this is the course actually, and hope you were able to see this PPT, which I'm sharing now here. So it's like day one means the class one, simply meaning that, okay, day one means the class one. So in the class one, what I have covered: why object oriented ABAP, OOPS introduction, different properties of object oriented programming, what is class and what is objects, what is global class and what is local class, what is instance attribute and what is static attributes, right? Then public, protected and private data hiding, right? So these are the things in detail. It's there in the first video, in the first class. This is a static attribute, this is a static attribute, and these are the instance attribute. Instance attribute means what? All the instance attribute is going to have the different memory. They all are having their own memory. So all these things have been discussed in more detail. You know, static means same. Everyone is going to share the same memory. Static means always going to share the same memory. When you have the instance attribute, that means it's going to have their own memory. That's the meaning of instance and static. So that has been discussed. Then in the second session, instance and static methods, right? Old and new syntax to declare and instantiate the objects. Then for the visibility section, public and private, whatever in green, that means in that particular day I have covered. Interface, abstract class, inheritance, me and super, right? Me, what is me? Me is a object which is going to refer the same class. Super, what? It's the keyword. Me and super both are the keyword which is going to behave like a object. Super is going to refer just above class, just the parent class, and me is going to refer the same class, the instance of the same class. So that has been discussed in more detail. Instance method, static method, their differences, different way of creating the objects, right? Then some example, and again this example, and like here you can see that what is the final keyword, right? This has been discussed. So final keyword for class is having its own meaning, and for the methods it's going to have its own meaning. Super and me keyword has been discussed. Then about the interface, and now you can see that in the class number 3 some questions I have discussed. Then abstract class, this interface and abstract class, protected keyword, multiple inheritance, how to achieve, because multiple inheritance is not supported directly. What is constructor, what is class constructor, and then we have discussed about the constructor hierarchy. So this is what. Then in the class 4 we have polymorphism, local class, load keyword, and default keyword. So these are the two important keywords. What's the importance when we are supposed to use, that has been discussed. In day 5 talked about the polymorphism and local class. You know, load I have already discussed in the previous class. Default is left, so in this class. Then the exception and exception handling. Again, in the class number 6, decode for class and methods, right? Then in the class number 7, custom exception, cleanup, block, resumable exception. So different types of exception we are having that I have discussed. Then narrow casting and its usage, wide casting and its practical usage, that I have discussed. Real-time example of casting in factory design pattern, right? Using the webbed input, that also is discussed in that session, right? So this is narrowing cast, this is the widening cast concept is discussed. Then what is event and how it behaves? Then different keyword you have: activation space, activation above false, right? You can see that. So how to deregister, how to register the events, how to use, how to declare the parameters in events, different types of events like instance events and static events, that I have discussed. And what's the usage of wide casting and narrowing casting? Real-time example, and that is also discussed in the class. Then in the next class, the class number 10, discussed about the instance and static events, event with parameters, event registration and deregistration, right? So some of the, like, you know, you can see that here agenda and this agenda looks similar, but something would have missed in this. That's why I have included over here. So now see here the real-time example for the purchase order application, right? Main functions. So one real-time example I have discussed, and about the events also in detail we have discussed how to deregister, how to register, how for all it's work, consider for all instances of, so for all the instances that event is going to get registered, right? In class number 11, design patterns, various types of design patterns and frequently used singleton design pattern we have discussed over here. See here, under the design pattern, there are three important categories. One is the creational design pattern. The second is the structural design pattern. And then the third one is the behavioral design pattern, right? So different design patterns come under the different category. There are so many design pattern, but at least you should know the singleton, factory, you know, singleton, factory, then abstract factory, MVC design pattern. These are the important design pattern which you should. However, I have covered all these, separate set of videos for the different design patterns that is also there along with this object oriented ABAP programming course. Okay, all the design patterns each covered. So this is what about the singleton design pattern. Then what's the use and where we can use them, the real-time use cases we have understood. And in the class number 12, about the UML diagram we have discussed, then the MVC design pattern, model view controller, right? The same design pattern is there in the UI5. Facade and template design pattern, this has been discussed, right? UML diagram and different types of relationship, right? See here. So when you have to understand about the UML, you will have to understand about the relationship, like association, aggregation, these terms, composition, you need to understand. Multiplicity, that means the cardinality, also you need to understand. Some examples, then model view controller, and then the assignment. So with the ease class also you are having the assignment over there. Class number 13 discussed about the facade and template design pattern, right? Then class number 14, one example, converting a procedural program to object oriented ABAP based program. So how to convert a procedural program, means traditional program, into the object oriented ABAP program, right? And then two examples I've taken. One is for like converting a procedural program to object oriented ABAP program, and then the second example, like you have a generic FM, then how you can convert them to the class and methods, right? ALB basics also it's there. And then this is the ALB related parts. In class number 16, you know, more about the ALB. I have discussed how to handle the events and all. And then in class number 17, you have how to remove the standard tool from the ALB toolbar, how to display the button in object oriented ALB, how to set the color, right? You have, when you have to set the color for a particular column, then how to do that, making hotspot, right? If you want to make a particular field, right? We have like a hotspot, how to do that. These are the stuff, these are the important concept have been discussed, all right? And then in class number 18, what is ALB object model, right? Salvi, right? Salvi programming model. So ALV using the Salvi, then setting a standard toolbar, setting a standard function, and displaying traffic color. So this is for the ALV object model, means Salvi ABAP. So then after, see, this I'm talking about CL underscore Salvi underscore table. This is also a one way of doing the program in ALV. Like if you want to do the programming in ALV, this is also one separate. This is known as the ALV object model. So this has been discussed. This I have discussed in way much details. And then already we have talked about the CLGUI container and CLGUI ALV grid. With the help of that also we can achieve the ALV in the object oriented programming. So that have been also discussed. See, then in the class number 19, control framework, flush and dispatch. Very important. What is this flush and what is this dispatch keyword? This is discussed. And then control framework, yes, like how the flush and dispatch works, that we have discussed, and I have shown a demo also for that.